Welcome to Forecasting Clouds and Experts of CRM in their own words. With me today is Paul Greenberg. Paul you probably have heard of, but if you don't, he's the author of CRM at the Speed of Light, volumes 1 through 4, and I would go for the fourth one. I think Paul would be in favor of that. And he's also, I think, well, just let me just say he's kind of known as the guy who wrote the book on CRM. I think that's all you need to know. And Paul, thanks for taking the time to talk with us.
Anytime.
Now, Paul, we've been talking a lot in the months leading up to this about social CRM, and obviously that's been a big topic on your plate for the last 2 years, or actually 3 years.
5 years.
5 years now. We were talking earlier off camera about the fact that there is no social CRM vendor yet.
Right.
What does it take for companies to actually put together a social CRM approach that actually works for them? Is it sort of like stitching together a quilt where you pick solutions that make sense for you?
Well, I mean, if you're looking at a practitioner company, actually the first thing to do is you have to piece together a strategy that figures out how do I not just simply manage my customers, but how I actually engage them. Meaning, what you're really doing is saying, I'm holding you close to my bosom customer. You know, I want you to be near me and stay with me and go with me where I go, and I will go with you where you go, and we will love each other forever until death do us part, right? And the idea really is fundamentally, if you optimize that relationship with the customer, if you're building your strategy, then you're actually creating an advocate with that customer who's going out and propagating for you. You might actually, at some points, even sell for you, depending on what kind of programs you have and what kind of business you are. Mm-hmm. But minimally, he's saying positive things about you, and he's recommending you, and he's actually pushing his own friends to not just would you possibly be the customer, but actually to become a customer of the company that he loves so much. So once you decide kind of a strategy to get you to there, and there's lots of components to that, then the technology stuff starts coming in, but it's at the tail end.
Paul, is there a hazard in this in looking at social CRM from the point of view of a technologist? In other words, you kind of forget the C and the R part of CRM and jump right into technology and think that's the end all be all, just like CRM suffered from in its early days?
The answer is yes, although there's a slight nuance this time. See, this time a lot of the people are getting interested in, when I say people, I mean the customers, are getting interested in because of the consumer side of it, not because of the business side of it. Because this has been a transformation in communication, and the tools have been fundamental to the transformation because they're pretty easy to use, in fact, and they're free, pretty much. So the technology has actually played a slightly more integral role this time than in traditional CRM in terms of where it's placed and how important it was as a driver. Mm-hmm. Technology under traditional CRM has always been an enabler. Here it's mostly an enabler, but a little bit of a driver too, in terms of the customer's familiarity and use with social interactions and communication. But not from the standpoint of the tools business is using to actually capture information about that customer for gaining customer insight and then providing the customer with channels. That's still the same trap as it always was, which is I'm going to implement the technology and hope it all works right. And if it does, I am golden. And if it doesn't, I am maybe bronze if I'm lucky.
Or maybe fired.
Right. That's right.
Each generation that comes along is more and more into this stuff, so it's almost like we're laying the groundwork for the very next generation of what we're going to be talking about here.
Yeah, well, actually, I don't know if you saw USA Today yesterday, but they had they're now calling them the I generation, meaning iPhone, iPad, blah. Now, the irony of that to me is really funny, really, because Apple is probably the least customer-centric company in the world, right? They're one of the most successful companies in the world, and I use all their stuff because I love it, because I'm not, I'm a gadget freak, but the reality is they're an engineering company, and they have horrible customer relations. They don't actually care about customers particularly. If you think about it, you buy an Apple product, you buy everything that's proprietary to Apple, and they complain about Microsoft being proprietary. They're the most proprietary company on the planet. You can't even buy a VGA adapter that isn't proprietary for them.
Right.
So, it's ironic, but at the same time, because the tools have more importance than they used to, they tend to spark this stuff, or they're beneficial to us.
Yeah.
Because the iPhone has been one of the best things for spreading this communications revolution, because of the nature of it and because it is so just utterly cool. So we're seeing something that actually is providing, from a company that's not at all customer-centric, we're seeing something that's actually helping spread this communications revolution a lot further, which is enhancing social CRM toward a much more customer-centric world.
We've heard some folks articulate their vision of how social media and social CRM is going to feed into that service component. How do you see that playing out for companies that really jump into the feed?
It's a couple of things. First, there's a sort of a redefinition of service going on, and that actually is like throwing everybody for a loop, because traditional service is actually support, right? I mean, it's help desk and support, and agents talking to you because you're screaming at the agents, right? And they're trying to talk to you is probably more like it. Or it's perhaps an inquiry about something that's not as charged but still important. Now service has 8,000 other pieces to it, meaning service is actually everything your company is doing to engage the customer, period. It's everything. And that means the salesperson, for example, becomes partly either a service person or a funnel to a service person, right? I mean, you know, we always had the pre-sale support and you had sales engineers and all of that, and that's still an important component, but now you have to have a means for the customer to actually stay engaged from the time he becomes interested in you to the time he actually is engaged and stays there, which means people who he can interact with in some way, in some channel, have to be there for all time throughout the entire process, not at the end or after the sale. It's before, during, and after the sale, and in conjunction with and around all marketing efforts. So service now is simply your engagement with the customer by the entire company. And now, you have specialists, of course, but at the same time, everyone has to be prepared to become a service person in the process.
That's really interesting. It sounds like this phenomenon is what's going to drive the concept of CRM as a discipline for an entire company, as opposed to CRM as the IT project that goes awry.
Right, and social CRM in particular is that really. The thing that's interesting about social CRM is it actually extends much, it's an extension of traditional CRM, but it extends much further than the tentacles of tradition would allow it. So what you actually see is that it becomes a fundamental vision for how you want to engage with your customers. It also becomes a fundamental roadmap for how you want to communicate with them and through which ways and what means and how and what times of day, so to speak. It also becomes a fundamental, I guess the best way to put it is on-the-ground approach, meaning that you can sit from department by department and look at what's missing in terms of that specific engagement with that specific group of customers your department is probably responsible for. So let's say you were an enterprise behind the firewall company. So one of the things you have to consider when social CRM becomes a strategy, because there's often been confusion between enterprise to all kind of collaboration and social CRM, but they're kind of converging now. But the real difference, really, there's only one real difference. Collaboration enterprise 2.0 stuff is contained within the company. When you open the company, provide pipes out so that the customer has bidirectional discussion with you, then you're reached into the realm of social CRM.
Right.
Once the customer is engaged.
Well, thanks, Paul. We really appreciate you spending time and talking with us about what you care so deeply about. It's always a lot of fun.
I actually like the people better than I like the business, to tell you the truth.
the C people, the customer people.
No, just the people, period.
Well, Paul's book, if you don't know, again, CRM at the Speed of Light, Volume 4. Paul Greenberg has been our guest on Forecasting Clouds and CRM Experts in Their Own Words. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.